Hello and welcome to Make a Plan with Bob and Dan. I'm Dan Bulk, an associate in the healthcare practice at Reinhardt.
And I'm Bob Lightfoot, a shareholder at Reinhardt. I'm also a registered nurse. So today we're here to talk about admission agreements. In our last episode, we talked about difficult discharge decisions. And as you may recall from that discussion, one of the important things with regard to difficult discharges is making sure your admission agreement is up to snuff. Today, I'm going to have a conversation with Dan. We're going to talk about what is required of admission agreements and what other provisions make for a good admission agreement for your facility. As part of admission agreements, there's certain requirements that are in each regulatory category, whether you're a nursing home, a CBRF, RCAC, adult family home. What are some of those required elements of either the service agreement or the admission agreement?
Yeah, so each type of facility has a different regulatory scheme which requires different stuff in the agreement. But generally, most facilities you need to include the services that will be provided to the resident, what additional services will be provided for an additional fee outside of the base monthly fee. You need to include notice provisions, so how you'll notify the resident or how they can notify you for changes in rates, services, termination of the contract, etc. Another big one is bed holds. When a resident is absent from the facility but they want to be able to return, how can they hold their bed, how much they have to pay you, how long will you hold it for, and then finally you have to include termination provisions, which are very detailed and highly regulated.
And each regulatory category has methods for what termination provisions can be and can't be included. You want to make sure you get those right when you're doing your notice. And we talked about that in our last talk, difficult discharges.
Yep.
So then other than the required elements of admission agreements, what are some of the other provisions that providers may want to consider putting in their admission agreements that may not necessarily be included in the specific regulation for their facility type?
A few big ones that are not required to be included, but you should include, are the ability to change rates and services. Most of the time you have to give at least 30 days notice to change these, but you should include the ability to do so in the base admission agreement.
Right, and that's important because people's condition can change suddenly. You don't want to get caught in a situation where your admission agreement says you're going to give 30 days notice for a change in services, and that's it. What if someone has a stroke? What if someone has a heart attack? What if all of a sudden someone that was a one-person transfer is now a two-person transfer and needs a different type of diet, a more expensive diet? Or someone needs the assistance of two for ADLs rather than one, and this happened overnight. You want to be able to charge for that immediately and not wait 30 days to get paid for those. Right,
and another reason that you want to be able to change the rates is in case you have a resident who, thankfully lives a long time in your facility, and you don't want to be stuck at the same rate that you've had a decade ago for, their base fees and services.
Right.
Another big provision is refund provisions. You want to, lay out exactly how they'll get their money back for anything that they prepay, how it'll be applied against other charges that they owe, those sorts of things. You also want to incorporate the house rules, policies and procedures. You want to make it known to the resident that they can't just do whatever they want now that they live in the facility, that they still have to obey all of the different rules that you'll be setting up from time to time. Another big one is indemnity provisions. Depending on the facility type, you can include an indemnity which would require the resident to pay the facility if they were to damage facility property, or if any of their visitors or guests were to damage facility property through their negligence.
All right, so ever have any questions about admission agreements? Dan and I can certainly help you out with that. If you want us to review that, they do get out of date from time to time. Many times they can be strengthened. Our purpose is to help the provider, protect the provider, and create the best admission agreement possible. So thank you for your time, and that's it for this segment of Make a Plan with Bob and Dan.